everybody, good morning. This is Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. I am chipping away at my list of suggestions. I asked you, I wasn't keen on making big things, so I asked all you lovely people if you had any suggestions. I have two pages full. And this tutorial that is coming up, I think, or I know that it was the very first suggestion that I got. And this is what the first suggestion for my little gift giving and little presents, just small little things to make to go into your sewing room. This is it. This is a little drawstring interior little lunch, waterproof, not insulated, a little waterproof lunch bag. It is, I've used inside a shower curtain liner. Now I've used a fabric shower curtain liner, not the vinyl ones, or shower curtain I should say. It's waterproof. The reason I use that is I hadn't gotten to the store to get the fabric, which is called, there's some fabrics called, I think one of the names is a pull, P-U-L, and then there's other waterproof fabrics for the inside of a bag. I hadn't gotten to the store, I couldn't be bothered, and I thought I want to try to make this. And so I had like a $9 or $5 waterproof shower curtain liner hanging around. I believe I got it at Walmart, or I forget where I got it. They're not expensive, and boy, if you wanted to make quite a few of these for presents, you get a tremendous amount of fabric. You know, think about it, in a shower curtain. So that's a good bang for the buck. What I've done here is I've used my little black and white fabric on the inside for my drawstring, so you need a bit of cording. And I do say 1.5 yards. You do need 1.5 yards because it just ends up about that big. Inside, not this part of the fabric, but inside is the waterproof liner, and then the little drawstring. And I'm sure most of you are going to be going, oh, I love that fabric. And if any of you had been to a quilt show, I think it was 2 years ago when Jen and I went, this fabric is by Hoffman Fabrics. I believe it's out of print, this gemstone. And this was the Hoffman Challenge fabric of a couple years ago. If you've followed with Jen and I just a few videos back, you'll notice that we're doing, or want to do, or try to do, this year's Hoffman Challenge, that they choose fabrics. Well, this fabric here, this beautiful gemstone fabric, which I loved so much when I went to the quilt show, that I came home and I got, I believe, 7 yards. I believe I bought 7 yards of it way back when, because I knew it would probably go out of print, which fabrics do. Sometimes people ask me, how much fabric do you buy? Obviously, I have a lot. If I like a certain fabric, I will buy 2.5 to 3 yards. If I love a certain fabric, I'll buy 5 to 6 yards. And if I will die without having this fabric, I'll buy 7 to 8 or 9 yards. That way, if I love it, I can use it for borders, the lengthwise, and or backing. If I don't even want to cut the fabric, I can make a large quilt with a backing that I absolutely love. But I had loved this, so I believe I had gotten 7 yards, and I had just used a little bit. I used my little black and white, you know me and my polka dots. I like that, and then this little bit of orange for that. This is batted. It's not batted. It's interfaced with a fusible fleece. You don't have to use the fleece. You can just use an iron-on interfacing. So it's a sturdy little bag. The handles are also sort of fused, and they're sturdy. And I've done the seams, as I do a couple times, to make it a nice sturdy bag. And at the end of my video, you see what I put in it: water bottles, fruit, Tupperware containers or Rubbermaid containers, and it could have even held more. And then, of course, with the drawstring, it's lovely and all contained, so if it does fall over. I had made a few videos back. I remember years ago I had made a little bag, a tote bag I should say, with the drawstring case inside of it that I had sold in my shop. I had constructed this bag, same principle, with on a toile fabric, and then I had some vintage handkerchiefs, and I sort of collaged them on, and then I did I believe it was yellow gingham, the little inside. So it looked like a sweet little, like a market, like a French like a country French little market bag. So I figured out how to do that, and I did it. So the little drawstring lining, and inside has the waterproof lining, so if something does spill. So I do hope you love this little tutorial. And again, thank you for sending me suggestions. Any more suggestions? I may or may not do them, but as I said, I'm checking them off my list. And nice little presents or making for yourself. So I hope you enjoy this little lunch bag, waterproof lunch bag tutorial. All right, folks. Thanks ever so much, and keep safe. Bye. What we need to make our lunch bag. First of all, the outer bag, the inner lining, and the interfacing. We are going to be interfacing the outer bag, and the lining that your food containers or your water bottles would be touching, I have made out of waterproof shower curtain. You can actually buy waterproof wipeable fabric or a vinyl, but I find that the shower curtain, a fabric shower curtain. This is made of premium polyester fabric. A fabric shower curtain fabric is the best thing to use if you want to make a lot of these for little presents, because you get an awfully lot of fabric for your buck. So that's what I'm using for the lining. So for the outer, the lining, and the interfacing, we're going to be cutting two each. 9 inches by 12.5 inches. Okay? For the what I call the drawstring, the pretty puffy part that comes up the top, that closes the whole thing, you're going to be cutting 2 8-inch by 12.5 inch pieces. For our upper rim, you're going to be cutting 4 of the fabric and 2 of the interfacing, 2 1/4 by 12.5 inches. Now I'm calling this interfacing, but I've used it before. I am using a fusible fleece. It's just a little bit heavier than an interfacing. If you wanted to, you could use a Patron 808, the craft fuse, or any stiffer interfacing to make our bag. But this is a thinnish fusible fleece that I'm using. A Patron no, that's a Heat and Bond product. The fusible fleece interfacing. For my handles, I'm cutting 2 each of the fabric and the interfacing, 4 inches by 12 inches. And then for my cording, to go around the drawstring, I'm cutting 1.5 yards, approximately 1.5 yards of cording. You can make a rope, a cording, or self cord, whatever you want to make. That's just a lovely little cording that I have. So now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, for my, I'll put these aside for now. For my main body of my bag, I'm going to be fusing my interfacing, which is a nubbly side. You want to find the glue side up according to the manufacturer's instructions. I'm going to be facing the glue side to the wrong side of my fabric, my outside fabric. I'm just going to go over, and again, according to the manufacturer's instructions, you want to make sure when you're ironing that you never, or pressing, that you never ever touch the glue side of your interfacing, and always press from the outside. I have fused my fusible interfacing, my fleece, whichever you're going to use, to the outside of my bag. I have done that on both of my bags now. I'm having my bag outside and my waterproofed shower curtain, waterproof lining, wipeable lining, fabric lining, that I'm going to be putting on the inside of my bag. What we're going to do now is, with the pretty sides together on our bag and our lining. Now the lining doesn't really have a inside or outside fabric, they're all the same. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sewing with the right sides together. I'm going to be sewing the long edge together. I'm going to be sewing the long bit together. This is going to become the bottom of our bag. Okay, so with 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to go over to my machine and I'm going to sew on the outside of the bag and on the lining 1/4 of an inch. I have sewn together the the long line for both my lining and my bag. And what I've done is I've pressed that seam open. This is the bottom of our bag. If you're using the shower curtain, this is obviously cotton. This is a polyester. You want to be careful that you turn your iron down. You don't want to be melting your polyester fabric here. I have this on the highest cotton setting. I've stitched my seam. I've pressed my seams open. Now what I'm going to do is just turning it up on that bottom seam there. I am going to go over and I'm going to stitch 1/4 of an inch on each side of both my waterproof lining and my cotton fabric. So I have stitched 1/4 inch on each short side of my lining and my outside fabric here. And what I'm doing is I'm pressing the seam open. And as you can see, if you've been following along with my other videos, you know I really like a tailor's ham. By all means, you could use a rolled up towel, a thick towel, to get into your seams that are a little bit awkward. I want to iron that open really nice. And so my tailor's ham, which this is ever such an old one, you can get them at fabric stores or even Walmart superstores. This is really old, that I've had forever. There's a cotton side supposedly for hotter fabrics, and then the wool side. But I just use it to get into awkward places, and I've pressed these seams open on each side. So I've stitched the sides of my lining and my bag now. Now we're going to be boxing the corners, and quite a lot of you who have been following know that when there's one way to box the corner, that you cut out your square, however you want your corners boxed. But this way, I'm going to be sewing it before I'm cutting it. This is just another way to box a corner. Easy, easy, easy. What you're going to do is, with the inside out, you haven't turned it right side out, you're going to be putting your hand, smoothing that open seam inside, and then you're going to come with this side seam, and you're going to take a pin. We're going to take a pin, and you're just going to poke it through so you can match up. You're going to match up your side seam with your bottom seam. Okay, and just fiddle around with it. Go up a couple inches, and there. And just go over slightly more. There we go. My side seams and my bottom seam is completely matched up there. Now, smooth it away. Smooth everything away. And with your ruler, what you're going to do is you're going to find the 5-inch mark. 1 to 5. You're going to smooth this all out. Smooth the sides out. Right out so that there's no tucks or anything underneath. You can remove your pin because you know that your bottom seam and your side seam matches. You're going to take your 5-inch marking, and from that point there on the edge to that point there on the edge is 5 inches. Now I go back slightly because my marker, or if you have a pen or whatever, I use a marker and it's a bit thick. So I just go back just a hair from my marker, and I'm just going to mark that right across there. I'm going to do that on all 4 bits, the two bits of my bag, and I'm going to do this on the 2 bits of my lining. I'm going to hold that together. Now I'm going to go over to my machine, and I'm going to stitch on that line, right on that line. And if any of you, again, who've been following, we will then cut this away. This is just another way to make a boxed corner of our bag. We're going to have a 5-inch bottom on our lunch bag. If you remember that, however long this is here is the width of your bag. So we're going to go, and I'm going to go sew right on that line on all 4 sides. So as you can see here, it's very important. I've sewn my box at corner, but it's very important that you match up the side seam and the bottom seam here, the bottom of your bag seam, because you want the exact same size on each, okay? You don't want it skewed. It's a little bit thick. As you know, I like to reinforce my seams here. So I just went over twice, and I stitched that twice. I've done that on both sides. I pinned it so everything stayed nice and square on my lining and my having pressed the seams open and my outer bag here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim off this that excess bulk there, and I'm just going to trim that off about 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more, for my bag. Now let's just see. I get all excited. I want to see what it looks like. Now we're going to have a rim on the top, so it's going to be a bit taller, but my bag, as you can see, is coming along very nicely, and so it's going to be a little bit taller, but it will hold, as you can see, that it will hold a nice container water bottle sandwich, and it's pretty. It's lovely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this one inside out and we'll go on to our next step. What we end up with, now you're going to be turning your bag so it looks proper like that, and what I've done is I've just sort of gone over to my ironing board and I've sort of just pressed that seam as best I can, pushed it out, and this is the beginning of our little lunch bag. Now with my lining, what I'm going to do is, just as I came off my sewing machine, I'm going to be putting the wrong sides. See the seams here, the seams are open here, the seams are open here. I'm going to put the wrong side of my bag, just as it would be, into my bag. I'm going to match my side seams here. I'm going to pin my open side seams there. I'm going to pin it all the way around the top, and I'm just going to stitch it very close to the top of my bag, making my waterproof liner and my sewing machine. And as you can see, I have inserted my lining into my bag, the wrong sides together. All right, so there's no raw seams showing, and I've clipped starting at the side seams, and I'm going to just stitch this not quite 1/4 inch. I'm just going to stitch it around the top of the bag, and because we've cut it and sewn it exactly the same, it's going to fit beautifully. So I'm just reaching around here, taking my clips out, just on the top of the bag. We're just securing this, making it easier for us to put the rim on. As you can see, the shower curtain sews beautifully. It is fabric, but it is wipeable. My side seams matched there, lovely. And back to where I began. And I will back stitch there. So now we're going to go. That's secured there. We have a nice waterproof bag. If anything, not insulated, but just like if anything spills, you can just wipe it right out. And we're going to go on and we're going to finish up with the rim. I'm working on my handles, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to fuse the inner facing, which again, the glue side up to the wrong side of my fabric. I'm going to go to my ironing board, and I'm going to fuse the inner facing to my handle. So I've made one handle here after I have sewn on my iron on my inner facing, and what I've done, it's a nice sturdy little handle because it's all padded. It's quite nice. What I've done is I've just turned it in, and it's a little bit more than 1/4 inch on each side. I've pressed that, and then I've just turned it over on itself, as you can see. As you can see there. Just turned it over on itself. It's a little bit thick, but I quite like that. So if you turn those edges in about about a little, maybe less than half an inch, and then turn it in half. And then what you're going to go do is you're going to go over and you're going to stitch it down one side. You can clip that together, and then turn it around and stitch up the other side. Now we're working on our top rim, our upper rim, which we've cut 4 of the inner fabric and 2 of the interfacing. What I've done here is I've already just gone over on 2 of my top rim pieces. I've attached my fusible interfacing. Put the glue side to the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, and I've ironed that very well. They've become one. Now also, what I have done is I have taken my ruler. Where's my ruler? Wherever my ruler is. I've taken my ruler here. I've taken my ruler and I've marked on each one of these top rims that I put the interfacing on. I've marked in 4 inches, and I've made a little mark there. Okay, I've done that on that one, and there it is on the other side. I've done that on both of my top rim interfaced pieces, because now we're going to be attaching our handles to our rims. And what I'm going to just turn it this way because my tripod. Now when you do your handle, you want to make sure that your handle is exactly centered. It's exactly centered on those dots that we've made there, and it's in the proper configuration. You don't want it like this, or you don't want it like that. You want it inside so that the round bit is facing up. So you see that? So it's facing up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my clips. I'm matching the center of my handle to the center of that dot, and I'm going to be clipping it, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to really reinforce my handle on. I'm going to go back. I'm going to bring my handle around, making sure it's proper, and raw sides together to the middle of that dot on either side. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to attach my handles. Again, raw side up, raw side matching. And I'm going to bring it up, bring it in around, making sure that my handle's the proper way, and put it right in the middle of that dot. And I'm going to go over now, and I'm going to really attach my handles strong. So I've sewn my handles on. I've really reinforced my handle there and on both sides. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my other piece of fabric, my other rim, and I'm going to pin along or clip along the top edge, the long edge, and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch, making sure I, again, reinforce over my handles. I'm going to sew along that top end. I've sewn my other bit of my top rim, and I've enclosed my handle, both sides, and the fabric wants to go, if you could press that open, but my fabric sort of just wants to go this way here, because what we're going to end up with is our top rim like that. So I'm okay with that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take our pretty sides of our handles, rims, and we're going to be putting the pretty sides together, the right sides of the fabric together, matching up that seam on that right there, and we're going to sew down 1/4 of an inch on each side. I have sewn the sides together of my tube, and what we're going to do is right now I'm going to open that up and finger press that as well as I can, like that, on each side, because we're going to turn this over and we're going to top stitch this top edge here. Okay, I'm just going to finger press that, and then we're going to turn this top rim over like that, and we're going to end up with our top edge. By all means, if you want to go press this and clip it, we're going to be top stitching. I'm going to start at the side seam there. We're going to be top stitching right along, maybe a little bit, perhaps a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch. I'm top stitching my rim at the top of the seam here. I've not even gone over to my ironing board, but I can just push that top seam and I can feel it really nice just like that. I'm going to just sort of finger press these seams open here, and just fold that over, making sure everything is straight in front of you, and that seam is at the very top. Now I'm going to punch right through my handles there, and again, just smoothing right in front of you as we go along. The seam is thick, so just go slowly. And again, just smoothing and smoothing and smoothing. Keeping everything nice and straight in front of you. And we're just top stitching. Not even not a quarter of an inch, just a little less than a quarter of an inch. Pull my handles out so it's nice and flat. Just gives this top rim a nice finished edge there. As you can see, it sort of wants to go with that seam at the top there. Keep it nice and straight. And then come back. These seams are opened, and then I'll go give it a nice press. Matching up where I began. And then a few back stitches right there. I've taken my rim here, and I actually sewed the two raw edges together, just a small little stitch around. Now what I've done is I've put it over my bag. I've put it over my bag with the handles down, and then you want to figure out, you always do the pretty side to the pretty side, okay? Pretty side to the pretty side with this raw seam up here, okay? As you can see, I've clipped it all the way around. I've matched my side seams here and here, and then I've clipped it. And because we've sewn it and we've cut it, it's going to sew beautifully right around the top of the rim. We're working with our drawstring fabric. I've stitched my rim around to my bag, and I'm just going to set that aside for now. And we've cut two 8-inch by 12.5-inch pieces of our drawstring fabric. What we're going to do is we're going to put the pretty sides together, the right sides together of the fabric. We're going to stitch down the side seams. However, we're going to stitch the side seams. However, we're going to mark a line 2 inches down. Put a pin there. We're going to start our seam 2 inches down from the top, okay? A little bit. Could have done that with a pen, but with a pin is fine. So I have the right sides together, pretty sides together, and I'm going to stitch 1/4 of an inch, 2 inches down, all the way down to the bottom. Now I'm on my ironing board, and I've stitched down on both sides 2 inches down from the top. There you go. And now what I'm going to do is I have continued pressing my seam open all the way to the top so that the top edges are folded in here, okay? Now what I'm going to do on both sides, I'm going to turn the top edge around from seam to seam with that fold inside 1/4 of an inch. Just going to press that, a little bit awkward, but just press it down 1/4 of an inch. Pressing that fold at the seam. I'm going to do that on both sides. They sort of should match. You've pressed that 1/4 inch down, tucking that seam, that fold at the seam. We are creating now our drawstring opening. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this folded edge, the 1/4 inch folded edge, and I'm going to press that down again about another 3/4 of an inch. And it sort of matches up almost to that 2 inch, the opening there. What we're doing is creating an opening here for our drawstring to go through. And it's no raw edges. So from seam to seam, it's a little bit awkward. I'm just going to press this down, keeping the folded edges in about 3/4 of an inch. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stitch on both sides the bottom of this folded edge over and making our casing. So there's that one over there, a nice crease, and then I'm going to come down so to match that up, keeping our seam folds tucked in so we have no raw edges. So you got that? So here, when we go to sew this casing down, we go to sew that down from edge to edge there, that we have an opening here and we have an opening there to threadle our drawstring through. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and stitch. If I have to pin this, I'm going to pin it. I'm going to stitch right along here, right along that fold to create our casing. I have stitched down my casing inside, close to the edge, and I've created, as you can see on that seam that's open, I've created a folded in casing. So our drawstring can be threaded right through this casing all the way around. And I did sort of manage to hold those edges together when I was going around the casing and sort of just continue stitching across that seam. But our casing holes are opened on that side of the seam and on that side of the seam with no raw seams. Now I'm going to turn this inside out. And again, pretty side to pretty side of the fabric, what we're going to do is with our casing side down, we're going to insert our bag, just as it is, into our drawstring fabric with the handles down, and then we're going to match up the side seams, wherever they are. Where's the side seams? There we go. We're going to pull this around, match up the side seams of our drawstring fabric and our bag. And it should fit pretty good. There you go. Should fit pretty good. Again, pretty side to pretty side. I've matched up those side seams. I come around here, matched up this side seam here. And as you can see, my drawstring fabric fits beautifully right around the rim of my bag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this all together. I'm going to clip this starting at my side seams, matching up my side seams. I'm going to clip it, and then I'm going to go and stitch, making sure my raw edges are together. I'm going to stitch right around this top rim here. So as you can see, I've clipped all my raw edges together. So it's my bag, my rim, and my drawstring fabric. I've clipped them together. And when you clip them together, just be very careful. Be very careful that you don't get any nasty folds. This might have a tendency to ruck up like that. So make sure everything is nice and straight. Now you have a couple of lines of stitching, so I'm making sure that I'm covering that line of stitching. We don't want any stitching showing on any side, because I've secured several of the layers together. And again, just smoothing everything away. My side seams here are matched, and I'm going to go over them just slowly because it's fairly thick. And again, pulling this out from underneath and just smoothing everything. Again, how am I sitting? I'm sitting straight in front of my needle. Makes the world of difference when you're stitching and keeping everything nice and straight in front. So I'll pull that lining out like that, my drawstring, smoothing out my lining. You are working with quite a few layers of fabric here, so you want this nice and straight. No nasty tucks in your vinyl lining or your waterproof lining here. Pull this out, match the raw seams at the top edge up. Got a little puckered, but it's okay. And then just come to that side seam there. Go slowly, and I'm going to back stitch there. And then right off. I've stitched around the top there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up like that. I will press it But for now, what I'm going to do is this is how it's going to look. This is going to get, your rim is going to get up like that. That's going to look pretty on the outside. And then your drawstring, your lovely little drawstring here, is going to be enclosing all of your lovely, let me see there, all of your lovely lunch bits. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to threadle my drawstring actually through it. So I have here about 1.5 yards of cord. You might not need that much. I'm going to cut it in half. I'm going to just cut that in half. Again, I always err on the larger side. And what I do is I take a safety pin. I'm just going to pierce that cording nice and tightly with my safety pin. And what you do with a drawstring is you start at one side. You start at one side of our opening. Remember, we left that opening. And you're just going to push it through with your safety pin. You're just going to thread all that right on through. And right out that folded side, and then back into the other side. Okay? Right through that opening. The drawstring is going to go right through the opening and out to the other side where you started your drawstring. Open up that little fold and grab your safety pin. Okay, and there, whoops, there's my ends. That might just be the right size. And then what I'm going to do, take my safety pin off, and I'm going to tie these ends. I'm going to do a double knot. I'm going to tie those ends. Actually, that might be strong enough. No, I'm going to tie another. So here's my little bag. I've done my drawstrings. I've done a double knot on each end, and that's about the right. I said about 1.5 yards, and it just leads a little bit because when you pull it, you have those drawstrings, and then they can just tuck in there. So I'm so thrilled with that, and then it's a nice capacious bag. What I am going to do is I pulled with my outer rim here with my handles, and what I've done again with a rolled up towel or however you want to press it, I will use my tailor's ham. I'll put my tailor's ham in here. I think I want to top stitch. I want to make it a little bit more finished edge, and I want to iron it. I mean, press it really, really well. So what I want to do is I can feel with it on my tailor's ham here, or however you want to press it. I'm pulling this drawstring out to the as much as it goes, and I can feel that along this seam here, that seam there is going down. All of this fabric is just going down. I can feel that. So I'm going to top stitch. I'm going to go over to my machine, pulling this out, having pressed this really well, iron this really well, keeping my handles out of the way, just pulling it down, and I'm going to go over to my machine, making sure everything is nice and straight where it should be, just tugging my fabric, tugging this drawstring fabric up so I don't get any nasty folds or tucks. And this is the seam that I'm going to be working on. I'm going to just top stitch this seam right here. Here is our little finished lunch bag with our drawstring, and as you can see, it holds my water bottle, it holds a piece of fruit, and it holds quite a large container for a salad, and even more for your napkin or your cutlery. So there's our little bag. If something does spill in your bag, it is not this part, not the top part, but the part that will be touching it is completely wipeable. So I hope you like our little bag here. That you can make, our little drawstring bag. I think it's super. Oh, that came apart. I really have to knot that. Maybe if you want to, if you get this slippery cord, maybe you want to put a couple beads in there and attach it. I really have to knot that. I'll have my husband knot that really, really well. But there's your drawstring, and there's your little bag. And I do hope you like this tutorial, folks. It's wipeable. It is washable, of course, because the liner is washable. And everything is cotton and polyester. So I do hope you love it. Thank you so much. Gonna have my pair. See ya.